I appreciate you for tuning in. I don't take it for granted. You can be doing anything else. There's a number of other things in life you could be doing other than watching this show. So, like I said, I want to thank y'all for tuning in tonight. Last week I talked about what I thought some foul things going on in our community, the black community in particular, and I was asked to kind of go over some of that stuff again. And it's a couple of things I want to put on the table before I go over that stuff. First of all, it's a lot of things going on in Hartford, some great things done by some people who've been really working hard to make things happen in the greater Hartford area. So, and tonight I'm gonna just talk about a couple of things, and then I'll have the specific dates and times next week. But there's a brother from the Hartford community named June Archer. He has his 100th talent presentation coming up. It's called Hot Chocolate Soul, and he has that coming up the first Friday in August. I'm not sure. I can't remember if it's the 3rd or the 4th. But he has that coming up the first Friday in August, the 100th. I mean, when you are doing something and you can end up doing 100 presentations, 100 shows. Over the years, this brother has done 100 shows. And Hot Chocolate Soul will be doing its 100th. Brother June Archer leading the way. And that's going to be at the Bushnell coming up this first Friday in August. I think it's August 3rd. So you might want to check it out. It's a lot of talent. And yours truly will be in the house. My presence has been requested to do my one poem. It's a poem that I do as a tribute to African women. And I'll have the opportunity to do that poem there that night, in addition to all kinds of incredible talent that's going to be there. And I'm kind of, you know, I'm psyched up to be a part of his 100th show. 100th show. 100th Hot Chocolate Soul presentation. So I just wanted to put that on the table. And also, I don't know everybody's name involved, but I know Darlene, Brandon, and Lenice, Nunu Smith, and some other people are involved in also a Charmaine trip, and they're doing a presentation of The Wiz, and that's going to be coming up pretty soon. So we got local Hartford people doing things, making things happen, and we have to go out and support it. I'm not sure, I don't have the exact dates for The Wiz, but next week I'll have the dates. But I just wanted to put you on alert. That is some things going down in Hartford. It's cool and positive. Hot Chocolate Soul 100th show. June Archer and all those that work with him are making that happen. First Friday in August. And Sister Darlene Brandon and Lenice Nunu Smith and Charmaine Tripp. Charmaine's a great singer. Lenice is a Nunu is just everything. Sings, writes. Yeah, it does a whole lot of stuff. Darlene the same way. So I'm sure it's going to be a pretty incredible show. I'll have all the names and I'll have all the information next week in regards to The Wiz. It's coming up. So I just wanted to put that on the table. Also, anybody out there seen Brother Darren Crittenden? Brother Crit. If you know Brother Crit, tell Brother Crit I'm looking for him. Not in a hostile way, but just tell Brother Crit that Alfonso is looking for him. Tell him to give me a call or something. But anyway, if you see Brother Crit, tell Brother Crit I'm looking for him. So I wanted to just put those things out there and let y'all know a little bit what's going on in Hartford. And I also wanted to, again, go back to some of the things I was talking about last week. I was talking about sexual misconduct, rape, sodomizing children, all kind of sexual abuse, and these things are going on. And the physical abuse, the men abusing women, and women abusing men too. You know, it's a couple of men out, there's some men out there that's catching some unnecessary beat downs as well. You know, but I don't know. Do they have any shelters for abused men? Somebody give me a call later. Let me know if they do have some shelters, an 800 number that abused men can call. And, you know, secretive place so the woman can't find them. And again, for the children and for the youth, I wanted to say that somebody's touching your private parts. For girls, it's your vagina or where you pee from. I'm just being graphic and clear. For young girls, if somebody's touching your vagina or where you pee from, you need to tell somebody. Any adults touching your private parts, or even where you do number 2 from, you need to tell somebody. Nobody should be touching your private parts. For boys, it's your penis or where you pee from, or where you do number 2 from. If anybody is touching your private parts, you should tell somebody. No one should be touching those areas. If your molester is looking at you right now, then when they're not around, call 911. That's all I'm saying. Just call 911. You'll get help. Don't worry about the molester threatening you or your family, because by the time the police and everybody's through with them, they'll be in jail and they won't be able to threaten you or your family. And don't be afraid to tell. Tell somebody. It's time to tell. This is real serious, and there's a lot of this going on out here, and I'm just here to say again, it's time to tell. Call 911 now. Don't wait another further. If the person who's been molesting you is not with you now, call 911 and tell the police that you need help, because you have someone who's been touching you inappropriately and someone who has been sexually molesting you. Call 911 now and tell. Don't be afraid. Don't be worried about what your parents might do to the person. It could be a friend of the family. It could be a family member. It could be your brother or sister. Still tell, because there are some serious psychological ramifications that you'll have to deal with for the rest of your life if you don't. You're already going to have to deal with. And if you don't put a stop to it, you know, it's going to be some really serious, deep-rooted problems. So call 911 now. Do not, and I repeat, if you are being sexually molested, don't tell or don't allow any religious person to convince you that God is going to handle it. Let the police handle it. Dial 911. And then whatever God's going to do, you know, God can do what God still wants to do, but you do something too. Dial 911, call the police, and let the police handle it as well. It's nothing wrong. The more the merrier. The more people you can get involved to handle it, the merrier. But do not allow anyone to tell you to leave it up to God. Call 911 now. If you have a parent who's dating somebody that's molesting you, call 911. It's a lot of stepfathers molesting their stepchildren, and that's just true. Not all stepfathers do that, but I'm just saying there's a lot of that going on out there. Children being victims of their mother's boyfriends. And physical abuse as well. If you're being sexually abused and or physically abused, dial 911. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter what their title is. Doesn't matter how important they are in the community or in the family. Dial 911 and tell. This show tonight is called It's Time to Tell. Somebody's harassing you and sexually molesting you, physically abusing you. It's time to tell. If your preacher is abusing you sexually or otherwise, it's time to tell. Dial 911 now and tell the police. If your teacher is sexually abusing you, dial 911 now and tell the police. If your father is sexually abusing you, dial 911 now and call the police. If your mother is sexually abusing you, dial 911 now and call the police. If your uncle is sexually abusing you, call 911 now and tell the police. If your brother or sister is sexually abusing you, call 911 and tell the police now. If a really close friend of the family is sexually abusing you, yes, tell on their ass too. Dial 911 and tell the police. If you one of them little fellas with the fancy little outfits in the Catholic Church and one of them dudes are abusing you, doesn't matter what they told you about the history and how God said it's okay and all that, dial 911 and call the police. If anybody in any church, doesn't matter, Baptist church, Pentecostal church, anybody is sexually abusing you, dial 911 and call the police. Now, it's time to tell. Call somebody. Lives are being destroyed. It's time to tell. Call the police and tell. And this, you know, somebody informed me of something else going on around here. I don't know how prevalent this is. Probably happening all across the country. But there are some young gay men who are being victims of rape. And they're being raped by so-called straight men. And young gay men aren't telling. Young gay men out there, just because you're gay doesn't mean it's okay for somebody to rape you. Dial 911 and tell. Call the police and tell. Now, don't wait. Give the police their first and last name and tell on them. But yeah, a lot of young gay men are being raped around here quietly and it's not being reported. But y'all need to tell too. Don't be allowing people to take advantage of you because of your sexual orientation or believe they can because of your sexual orientation. Any human being who is sexual has preferences, and nobody wants to be violated or to just be taken. I don't care what your sexual preference is. So those young gay men out here who are being raped by these, like I said, so-called straight men in some cases, and gay men, young gay men are being raped, call the police and tell, give first and last names. And sometimes you out there and your lifestyle is not really exposed and revealed, and you feel a little uncomfortable calling the police because you're not ready for people to know that you're gay or whatever the case is. When you've been violated, you need to really call the police, because whoever the monster is that has done it to you, as long as they are allowed to continue doing it, there are multiple victims who are being violated as well. So you need to be comfortable with yourself and do what's necessary so that you don't continue to be violated and you don't participate in allowing others to be violated because you don't dial 911 now and tell the police and give some first and last names and let police know who's doing this. Because it's probably a few of the same people who are out here doing it feeling like they just can get away with it. So for young gay men as well, dial 911 now. Call the police, give first and last names, and tell that you've been raped. Because psychologically, it's heavy. It's something that's a burden on you for the rest of your life. And trust me, it's not going to go anywhere. You have to do something about it now so that you don't, create this dark spot in your reality that just stays there forever, no matter what you do in life. So dial 911 and tell. It's time to tell. And, I was thinking about the children in general, young girls and boys. And I'm talking about mostly like, 14 and under. And the question is really who's raising them. Because in most cases out here, they're raising themselves. They're making life discoveries on their own. Some things they understand, some things they don't. The children don't have anybody explaining things to them. They're used to not having anybody explain things to them, so they're just kind of figuring it out on their own. In many cases, in figuring it out on their own, there's a lot of unnecessary pain that goes along with that. So who's raising them? Ask the question, who is raising them? And you hear the standard statement, it starts in the home. Starts in the home. Well, let's examine the home. How much time is spent in the home helping children understand life and what it's about? And if people really believe it starts in the home, how much time is really spent helping children understand what life is about while they're in the home? How much time is spent? Because, we have the smartphones, and we have the internet, and we have everything, and there's so many things that are holding on to the minds of the masses, the children and the adults. How much time do we spend away from the phone in a conversation with the children, helping them understand life? And if it starts in the home, think about how much time is actually spent with the children, having a conversation about life stuff, if you believe it starts in the home. When was the last time you just sat down with the youth, the children, or child, or whatever, and just had a conversation? So, what are your life's ambitions? What are your goals? What are your interests? What do you like to do? What do you plan on doing with your life? Is there anything that I can help you with? I mean, how is our interaction with the youth? What do they like about school? What do they dislike about school? What do they like about church? What do they dislike about church? What do they like about life? What do they dislike about life? And, don't think the church is going to raise your child and the scripture is going to help them understand life. I think the scripture can help a child understand life, but, even if you believe the scripture can help a child with life, how much time do you spend with the child going over scripture and helping them understand how this particular scripture can assist you in understanding how life works? How much time? You can't possibly believe that that's going to happen on Sunday when the minister grabs scripture from this book and a scripture from that book and a scripture from the other book and a scripture from another book, and then throws them all together and comes up with a subject. And do you really believe that that's going to help them understand what life is about? I don't think so. When's the last time you sat down, if that's what you believe in and you believe the scripture is good, when's the last time you sat down with your child and went over the scripture with them, and certain scriptures as it relates to life help them understand the parallels so that they'll know how to navigate this reality called life? When's the last time you did it? If that's what you believe. If you're a Muslim, it's the same thing. When's the last time you sat down with your child with the Quran and grabbed some scripture to help them understand, to use that scripture to help them understand what life is about? When's the last time you asked them, what do they like about life and what do they not like about life? And then talked about that. There are some parents that really expose their child to a lot of different things. It reminds me of certain things I read and how, back in the day in ancient Africa, how children were allowed to explore and identify their interests, and then they were encouraged to pursue whatever they identified as their interest. And there are some parents today that have their child in ballet, and they don't have them in piano, and they don't have them in volleyball, baseball, basketball, the debate team. They get their child involved in a lot of different things. And then so many of these schools have these programs where your child can travel abroad and study for a semester and those kind of things. That's, in this day and time, that's what children really need, exposure to a lot of different things. And if nothing else, the opportunity to travel to another country and see how other people are living and see what else is going on this planet, other than Nicki Minaj. And Nicki is cool, got nothing against Nicki. But there's some other things going on other than Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta style. Some other things going on in life. There's some other people living some different ways. So when you're thinking about a school to put your child in, do you think about things like that? Student exchange programs, language. I don't care how you feel about it, this is the reality. We live in a bilingual society. If you're watching TV, they're going to have Spanish commercials, and then they're going to have regular commercials. Everywhere you go, there's always some Spanish. Everything you call the recording, do you want it in Spanish, you want it in English. This is a bilingual society. How many of you are making sure your children know how to speak Spanish? Or are you setting them up to go search for a job? And they're sitting there with great credentials, and another person is sitting there with great credentials, but the other person is bilingual, and your child is not. So these are just some basic things that we can do if we're involved in a child's life that can make all the difference in the world. And sometimes when we have the authority, we have to exercise it. It's not an option. Sometimes you got 8, 9, and 10-year-olds getting options. Well, she doesn't like that. Oh, he doesn't want to do that. What the hell, man? Ain't no like or want to do. There's no choice in this. This is something that has to be done. And there's no way you can expect a 10-year-old to understand why you think it's important that they do certain things. But these children nowadays at 6 and 7 need to be learning Spanish, at least as a second language, if they don't already speak it. There's no well, I don't think she gonna like that. He ain't gonna want to like, what? So I guess you'll leave it up to them if they wanted to smoke some cigarettes or smoke some weed or snort some cocaine too, right? You'd be like, well, that's what they want to do. Oh, really? See, we have authority at a certain age that we need to exercise because it's necessary. It's not cool sometimes to be negotiating when you're talking about preparing children for life. So that's another thing they need to be it needs to be made clear to them. They need to know how to speak Spanish. They need to travel. They need to get involved. If there's a student exchange program in their school, they need to get involved in that and travel, go through the process of getting a passport, taking a passport picture, getting on a plane, going to a whole different country, seeing how other people are living. And we can take our children right here in the United States around and see how other people are living. Get them used to traveling around, understanding that life is not the box that they're around all the time. So we need to get involved in their lives for real, because they're spending time somewhere else with something else or someone else if it's not with you. And the question is, what are they being taught and what's being molded into their consciousness and how is their mindset being developed if you're not the one developing it, if we're not the ones developing it, especially if we have the child in our life and they're with us every day. What are we doing? So what I'm going to do is open up the lines 860-524-8920. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. You put it on the table. And if you want to talk about some of the things I talked about tonight, it's all good. But or whatever's on your mind. 860-524-8920. Went down to the Bushnell a couple of Mondays ago. I got to see the incomparable Dr. Emery Austin Smith do his thing, and you know, when he finished, man was up there getting all kind of accolades and recognition and love from the people. It's a beautiful thing. Man been on the planet 80 years. Ask him a question, get a history lesson. Simple as that. And it's always good information. Yeah, that's another thing going on in Hartford, that, you know, the Monday night jazz done kicked in. People go out and have a good time. It's just nice seeing a lot of people enjoying themselves. That's pretty cool. If you know of anything else going on, you can give us a call or let us know. But it's about sharing the information. And like I said earlier on the show, anybody out there seeing Brother Crit, tell him Alfonso's looking for him. Like I said, not in a hostile way, in a cool way. And we have to do everything we can to stop this sexual misconduct going on with the children. It's out of hand, and it needs to be dealt with. And the number is 860-524-8920 if you got anything you want to put on the table. I remember when I took my first trip outside the country. My first trip leaving America. Well, no, this was my second trip. My first trip, I went to Montreal, Canada. It was like a bus trip. My second trip was to St. Kitts. St. Kitts, and was it St. Kitts and Nevis? St. Kitts. One of the beautiful things about that trip was that I was looking out the window at this house I was staying in. And every morning, I would watch these young kids, man, little kids, like 5, 8, 10, but youngest 5 years old. And every morning they would walk, they would bring these big pails and walk up to the well or the pump, and they pump this water, this fresh water every day. They go get this water. And, you know, I'm nosy and I'm watching, and I realized that was just a necessity for the day. They needed water for cooking, water for cleaning vegetables and stuff, water for washing clothes, water for washing themselves. You know, they needed water to start the day. So every morning they would go and get this water. And I was like, see, that's life. That's real. And they would get this water and bring it back. And then you see the 5-year-old, you know, climbing the tree to get whatever it was. I'm not sure what it was. I don't know if it's breadfruit or whatever. But then they set up a little stand right outside there to sell the fruit and stuff. And I was saying, this is pretty incredible. At 5 years old, you learn that not Muhammad, not Jesus, Abraham, God, nobody's going to get up and get that water for you. You have to go get it yourself. At 5 years old, it's so powerful to learn that watching a 5-year-old know that at 5, I'm the one that has to make it happen. There's no soup kitchen, no shelter, no welfare, no free lunch line, no government cheese, no nothing. It's either I make it happen or it doesn't happen. A lot of us don't understand how powerful that is to know at 5. Now, look at the contrast to that experience to what I was raised in. I'm raised here in the United States. I grew up, it was welfare, food stamps, shelters, soup kitchens, programs, everything, all kind of stuff that helps you not just totally suffer. So kind of in the back of your mind, you realize you're only going to suffer so much. It's no different than all of the programs available here, where there are people who are comfortable living off the programs. And they don't need any more, and that's good. But the difference between being raised here and feeling like there's always something that'll keep you from hitting rock bottom and watching 5-year-olds learn that they have to create their own way. That's pretty incredible. So, you know, and eventually when I went to Jamaica and Puerto Rico, Trinidad, you see the same thing. People understanding at a very young age that if it's going to happen, I have to make it happen. So now imagine those people with that consciousness that they've had at a very young age, 5 years old, coming to America and they have the same consciousness. Now when they start looking around here in America and they see these programs and all of these different ways to get things done and whatever, it's like, whoa. And it's like diving into an open swimming pool, man. And yes, they make progress pretty damn quick because, you know, not because somebody's treating them special. That might be happening in some cases. Not because they think they're better than somebody. In some cases that might happen. Not because they're in a competition with Black Americans. In some cases that could be true. But because at 5 they knew that if anything's going to happen, I have to make it happen. And that is something extremely powerful. And that's something that needs to be understood by more people here. But it's also something that needs to be understood by islanders that come over here and don't see the contrast or have an understanding of why things are so different. Yes, caller, make it plain.
Hey, Alfonso. My name is...
Hold on 1 second. Can you turn the caller up in here, Phil?
I'm a CNA. And what I'm calling about regarding is me and my boss. First, she had an issue with my head wrap, my turban that I wear every day. So when I call human rights and everything up on her, she decided to say, now it's not about that. It's about my attitude, and she still wants to meet with me. How do you think I should address this, and what should I do about this?
At work? You talking about at work, right? Hello? Phil, you got me turned up on the phone? Hello?
Oh, you did.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Did you hear me?
I heard you. I'm asking, can you hear me?
Okay. I'm not sure what... Did you understand what I said?
I heard you. I understood what you said, and I'm asking you, can you hear me?
I can hear you, not on this side.
You can hear me, but not on the phone.
No, I can hear now.
Okay, well, just listen to the TV then.
Okay.
Phil, this doesn't sound good. Whatever you turning up, you probably got to turn that back down a little bit.
Anyways, thank you, and I hope you answered the question.
Listen to the TV. I'll answer the question.
Okay, thanks, hon.
All right. Did she hang up, Phil? Okay. What I wanted to say is this. If this is your job and the way you need to eat and live, what I would suggest is that you make the necessary adjustments to maintain your job. Because on these jobs, black people, we really don't have the juice card to be getting in a fight with these people. They have the juice card, they have the power, they have all kind of things. And then we get taken away from life and taken away. When we get in fights with these people at work, that's normal for them. There is no history when they haven't been fighting. So that's what they do. They fighting all the time. Not only that, but they're fighting and they have a whole lot of backup. So what I'm suggesting is this: make the adjustment. Whatever you have to do, make the adjustment. I always say move like water for the purpose of the big picture. And the big picture is to get paid and get out of there. Don't take your life to the left as it relates to fighting with these people. And it doesn't matter what the issue is, it's always going to boil down to attitude when it comes to black people. And attitude, let me explain what attitude is. Attitude is any time you make white people uncomfortable and you don't do everything you can to recomfort them. That's what attitude is. Because white people feel like they have the absolute right to be comforted by black people all the time. And if you do or say anything that makes them uncomfortable, and then you don't do everything in your power to recomfort them, that is what is identified by white people as attitude. So I would suggest, rather than getting in a fight with those people, you can be black power everywhere, and represent your history and your culture everywhere. You don't have to do it in that job, in that place, where you depend on that place for getting your money. And it ain't got nothing to do with selling out or anything. It has everything to do with understanding reality and being able to make the adjustment and deal with reality in a way that reality serves your best interest. If you at work getting in a fight with those people about history and culture and about representing, then you're not doing it is my opinion that you're not doing a good job at dealing with reality. I do remember having that revolutionary disposition, and I do remember that I would fight a white person to the death to be able to represent my history and culture on their job. And I got fired from a job as a waiter because I wouldn't cut my hair. I had a high top fade, and I was a waiter. And the head maitre d' told me that if you don't cut their hair, then don't come back to work. And I didn't go back to work because I was representing. I wasn't cutting my hair for these white people. Because where I was working at, it was 100% white membership. And at the time, the only black people in there were black people who were serving them. So, and I'm sure maybe one of them must have had a problem with it. So he told me if I didn't cut it, don't come back. So I didn't go back. And, but I don't feel like I have to be in a fight in order to understand life and move through this life. It's not necessary to be in a fight. For me, it's necessary to move like water. Keep my goals in mind, keep my eyes on the prize, knowing what I'm doing, and make sure I'm being served. Because the system, you're going to serve it no matter what. And the only way you can truly represent on these people's job is if you are sitting in the meeting when they're making the rules for, because, it's kind of delicate now. They can't just totally be blatant about the dress code if you're wearing something cultural. But if you are wearing something cultural and they don't like it, then they'll come up with some other things, because you're human and you're going to make some mistakes. And they're going to continue going after you until they get you. That's how they do. They're relentless. One group of white people still chasing another group of white people around who got to be in their hundreds now. Still chasing them around, hunting them down. But anyway, move on with life. Get the money. Stay focused on, it's 8 hours out the day and it's 5 days out the week, and you got another 16 hours to represent. You got the rest of your life to represent, all of the rest of your life outside that place to represent. You don't have to represent there. Just represent, get that money. That's what you do at work. You get that money. So make the adjustment. Move like water, baby. That's what I say. Move like water. Don't get in no fights. Fighting is not sexy. It's not sexy at all. There's nothing sexy about fighting. If you ever want to find out, you go on YouTube and look at some of these fights. There's nothing sexy about fighting. It's just ugly, period. And there's a certain group of people that try to make fighting sexy by having people fighting in jello and mud. That's just ugly. It's nothing sexy about fighting. I don't care what you're fighting in jello, mud, or in the doggone grass or on the cement pavement. It's nothing sexy about fighting. Nothing sexy about being in a fight at work when you're gonna lose. Because they have all of these programs you can go to help defend you. But what is your life like while you're fighting? What is your spirit like? And what is your health like? And how is your health being affected during this battle, in this fight? You know, those are the things we have to think about. So I'm not trying to fight anymore, man. Fighting is not sexy. Trying to just live and be at peace as much as possible and enjoy life as much as possible and make sure this reality serves me as much as possible. So that's the name of that tune. Yes, caller, make it plain.
All right, Alfonso.
Yes.
What I'd like to know is, how did you elevate your consciousness?
Excuse me?
What it is today.
Asked again?
How did you elevate your consciousness to what it is today? Because you're at a certain level. A lot of cats that I meet, you know, they ain't really at your level. Seem to have a higher level of consciousness than most brothers that I know. I just want to know, like, how did you elevate your consciousness to the way it is today? You
Well,
can answer that question. Thank you, my brother.
all right. Thanks for the call. One of the ways, Phil, can you turn this speaker down? One of the ways that I work on my, Phil, I don't know what you just turned up, but this speaker is on in here or something. One of the ways that I work, did you turn it off? No, you didn't. Can you turn it off or turn it down? One of the ways that I work on my consciousness is I have this real great desire now to be at peace. And it's like when you want to be at peace, you start making the adjustments necessary to be at peace. It's like looking straight ahead and seeing your goal, and now everything in front of you is just a temporary obstacle to get to the goal. So, and that's how, for me, consciousness works. I have this desire to keep moving to next levels of understanding, like to keep getting next levels of understanding. And because I have this desire to, then I can't, see, one thing about this life teaches us to invest in beliefs. And then we invest in these beliefs and we hold on to them. And then even when we hear something that makes more sense than what we have invested in, we can't let it go because we've invested so much in it. And one of the things that helps me move or continue evolving is that, and I learned it from Malcolm X. You know, one of the things I read his book, the autobiography, a couple of times, and listened to a lot of his tapes and his speeches. And one of the things I learned from Malcolm X is that when you learn something that makes more sense than what you were believing, doesn't matter how long you invested in it, if you want to continue growing and evolving, you got to let it go and keep it moving. But that's difficult to do in this life, because this life teaches us, once we've invested in a belief system, we just hold on to it forever and ever until we die. And you can't grow. It's not possible to grow. It's not possible to evolve. It's not possible to be the most you can be as a person or as a human being if you are hindered by your investment in a set of beliefs given to you by somebody else. So I hope I'm making sense. But for me, that's how I continue like evolving or growing, or some people call it high level of consciousness. It's because I'm not invested. Right now, the things that make sense to me now, right today, I have no problem next week saying that doesn't make sense to me anymore. This is what I've learned since then, and this now makes more sense to me. Have no problem doing it. Have no problem letting it go. I'm not invested in anything I'm even saying tonight. Because this is what I understand tonight as of this moment. This is what I understand. But I'm not invested in it. I'm not so committed to it that I'm afraid to grow and evolve. So and see, what happens is now that puts you in this very limited area in space, because if you are a religious person, then you're invested in that. You can't evolve, you can't grow, you can't move consciously because you committed and invested in these particular beliefs. And in some person's or group of people's philosophy based on how they were thinking at a particular time. Well, one of the other great things that I've come to understand is it doesn't matter what the man or who the man was or what their name was or when they existed. All men and every man is operating just like me based on a very, very limited understanding of the human body, the planet Earth, life, and the universe. Doesn't matter who they were, doesn't matter what their title was, doesn't matter how many followers they had, they were all operating based on a very limited understanding of the human body, the planet Earth, life, and the universe. Limited understanding. So what sense does it make me to invest in the beliefs of somebody whose understanding was limited, and then now I invest in that belief system, and now my understanding stays limited. I don't grow, I don't evolve, I don't learn new things, I don't take understandings to next levels because I've invested in somebody's belief system or thought process. No, man, I'm open. I'm looking to learn from every resource available because I want to keep getting to next levels of understanding. There's so much to understand about life in this universe. There's just beyond my comprehension. And in my limited time on this planet, there's no way I'm going to ever learn it all. But while I'm here, I want to learn as much as possible. I want to grow and evolve as much as possible. I want to see what's next all the time. What's next all the time. So that's one of the things that kind of moved me out of a religious phase that I was in. It moved me out of a revolutionary phase, an angry phase that I was in, and it continues moving me. It moved me out of the racial phase that I was involved in. And it's going to keep taking me to next places. And I'm going to keep being ready to go every time, every single time. So it's a beautiful thing, man. When you start finding some peace in your life and you're not fighting everybody and everything and trying to represent, you know. And another thing I tell people, there's nobody and nothing I'm willing to die for. I'm just not. It's too much available in life, and it's too much to live for, and it's too much for me to offer for me to be dying for something. No. It's too much to live for. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I'll be back next Wednesday. I am Alfonso McGriff III. This is Make It Plain, y'all. I'm out. Peace.